Good evening. My name is Tim Markle. I'm director of the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. We're out of the Waisman Center. We cover 14 counties in southern and southwest Wisconsin, including the awesome county of Rock. And I am so excited to kick off this Transition Talks Tuesday series with the school district of Janesville. We are joined tonight by Shana Ratsberg, who's a transition specialist, Rebecca Garber, who is a high school program support teacher, along with a team of educators invested in transition at the school district of Janesville. They have partnered with the Southern Regional Center to bring transition topics that matched your community needs. I know that at this point, neither one of them can introduce themselves tonight, but they are available for questions and follow-up if needed. They will continue to offer watch parties for the course of the Transition Talks Tuesdays, in addition to the virtual option through the series for families as well as educators. So just a reminder, next week's viewing party will be at the Craig High School Small Auditorium. So Craig High School Small Auditorium, if you feel like social distancing and being good public health folks, you can join out there. We are excited tonight to have Barbara Katz, who's co-director and co-founder of Family Voices of Wisconsin. I've known Barbara now for a while, a few years here, and we have done this. I have heard her present a number of times, and so I am excited because I always learn something new. So I'm glad you guys are here. Afterwards, we will get you the link as well, so that if you remember something that you wanted to go back and listen to again, it'll be there. If you've not yet put your number, your name, and into the chat box, and if you did not pre-register, your email in the chat box as well, so we can take attendance. That's very much appreciated. With that being said, Barbara, I made you a co-host, and we're excited to have you here tonight.
Well, thanks, Tim. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm sharing my screen, so I'm hoping that everybody will be able to see this. Let me just get it as a slideshow. Whoops. All right.
That looks good.
Great. Thanks, Tim. So,
Barbara, before you get in, I forgot
Yeah.
to say something that I wanted to say.
Yes.
Number one, I forgot to ask you how you would like to handle questions. I will be monitoring the chat, and I can let you know if things are in the chat. I know that you stop every so often for questions. I will also then pop up the gallery view, and I'll look for raised hands at that point. But one of the reasons I'm excited, so especially, and maybe you didn't know this, excited to do this tonight, but Janesville, I was looking it up online, is around the 10th largest school district in Wisconsin.
Wow.
So you guys are reaching a boatload of kids. So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Yes, well, thank you. So hi, everyone. As Tim said, I'm Barbara Katz, and I'm co-director of Family Voices of Wisconsin. If you don't know Family Voices, we are a statewide organization that helps families navigate and understand healthcare and community supports so that they can best advocate and support their child. We have a staff of 4 people, amazing people and we're all parents. And so I have 3 adult sons. My middle son, Ben, who you very well might hear calling me through this because he's started to, and yep, there he is. And so I'm trying very hard to keep declining that. We'll see what happens. But I apologize in advance for that coming through. Let's see. Anyway, so Ben is 30, and he has intellectual and developmental disabilities, and lives in his own apartment. He's been living in his own apartment for 5 years now. He works several jobs in the community and is just a very active participant in his neighborhood, in his community, and loves living independently. I will say that when we got into transition 12 plus years ago, I had the sort of misconception that transition was a one and done kind of thing, and that transition would happen and that we'd be done. And lo and behold, I was totally surprised that I was so wrong about that. There are some activities that do happen right around prior to someone turning 18, right around someone turning 18, but there's a lot that happens after people turn 18 and continues through people's lives. And our kids will have transitions continually throughout their lives, right? Where their supports and services will need to be adjusted and fine-tuned and meet the needs of wherever they are at that particular point in time. We're going to be talking, you're going to be getting a lot of information tonight. Likely you will feel overwhelmed, and that's okay, because what's most important is you know that you have Tim and his team to connect with you. You have the staff at Janesville schools, and you will learn about new professionals who will also be able to provide assistance to you. So please don't hesitate to call on them, because they are incredibly valuable in what they can offer and the support that they can offer both you and your person. Tonight, we're going to be, as I said, taking this very broad overview, a 30,000-foot overview. We're going to be looking across service systems. So we're going to be talking about healthcare. We're going to be talking about post-secondary education. We're going to be talking about community living, and we'll be talking about legal and procedural considerations. Please do feel free to stop. I will be pausing, and please feel free to ask your questions. We're here to answer your questions tonight, as well as giving you information. A more expanded version of this training is available online. You can go back and Tim, if you'd be willing just to drop that link into the website of where this is, where you can find this training and the resources that Tim mentioned online. You can go back and watch this multiple times. But before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty, it's important to think about how we can prepare our kids for transition from the time that they're born, truly. And those become that begins with dreaming and imagining the potential for our kids. There's a lot of research that's been done on kids with disabilities and special health care needs, and around the importance of families having high expectations to think about what the possibilities are for their children. So when you think about your child as a child first, and what I mean by that is you have a child who has tons, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. They have a ton of gifts and will develop a lot of strengths and skill sets, some of which you would never have imagined if they didn't have those experiences and opportunities that you as family members and as educators give to them. And those experiences and opportunities for our kids are invaluable in showing them possibilities, right? And giving them the opportunity to have high expectations for themselves. Early choice making that we do for our children, with our children, starting at very young ages, again, whether they have disabilities or not. What color shirt do you want to wear? What would you want to wear, the yellow shirt or the green shirt? Choices in what to eat. Do you want some berries, or do you want a banana? All of those very simple choices will equip our kids to start being prepared to making choices and decisions when the stakes are higher than fruit or the color of their shirt. And then just finally, I want to introduce the term, if you haven't heard it, and that is that of interdependence. You know, no matter how independent each of us are, we always rely on others to support us, to give us ideas, to give us assistance. And that's true of our kids with disabilities as well. So even though we might think of ourselves as very independent beings, we're in fact interdependent because we also rely on others at different points in our lives and in different situations. And so think about that as you're supporting your person to become independent, to know that they will likely always be interdependent, but like many of us will always be interdependent as well. So let's pop into and talk a little bit about some legal and procedural considerations. Special education, for kids who participate in special education, it is governed by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act on the federal level. And that then it is implemented on a statewide level. Because it's implemented on a statewide level, the states can sort of tailor, they can have greater expectations in the law. They can't reduce the law, but they can add to the law. And so one of the things is that Wisconsin says that while federally transition has to begin at age 16, Wisconsin says we're going to start at age 14 because we really believe that it's super important for our kids to start younger, to learn about transition and to have those transition goals in their IEP starting at the age of 14. And so at age 14, the year your child turns 14, when you gather together as an IEP team, you will notice that this is the first time that there will be formal additions to the IEP that actually talk about transition goals. And this is when you start thinking with your person about, in a formal way, what do we want to plan for? Are we planning for work? Are we planning for post-secondary education? Are we planning to get planning for the achievement of a high school diploma? Are we planning for a certificate of completion and broadening the range of courses that are available through high school? So this intentional work of transition starts formally with the IEP team at age 14. There is an entity in every county in our state called the Aging and Disability Resource Center, or the ADRC. And they are the place, starting when someone is 17 and a half, to go to when you want to determine if they are eligible for public benefits, such as long-term support services, such as whether or not they'll need to qualify for things like Medicaid or SSI or SSDI. To learn about what other kinds of public benefits there are. So this is the Aging and Disability Resource Center is an agency that has experts who deal with youth in transition, and they complement work that is done through the IEP team and start looking at more of the benefits, the public benefits, the health insurance, access to Social Security, disability income, access to supplemental security income through the Social Security Administration. Now, Tim is dropping a number of links into the chat box. Thanks, Tim, for doing that. Rock County's ADRC, that website, the website that tells you generally about Aging and Disability Resource Centers, and a benefits page from the Social Security Administration. What is important to know is that even if people have children utilize some public benefits prior to turning 18, they will still need to reapply. So, and this is because there's different qualifying criteria, and there's different financial statuses that affect somebody before they turn 18 and when they turn 18. So let's talk about that a little bit. Prior to the age of 18, parents have full responsibility and legal authority over their minor children. So that is true up until a child is 17 years, 364 days. The next day, when a person turns 18, those parental responsibilities are removed and the person is a legal adult. What that means in the benefits world is that that when you're a minor child prior to turning 18, income and assets are figured in. A child doesn't really own their income and assets. It's part of a family's income and assets. When considering SSI and SSDI, it is that family's income and assets that come into play. When a person turns 18, it is only that person's income and assets that are considered for the financial component of eligibility for Medicaid and for SSI and SSDI, even if the person is living at home. Similarly, there is a set of functional or disability determination criteria for children that is different than the criteria for adults. And so this is why, even if a child has a condition from birth and it has not changed over 18 years and it's not expected to change at all, you still need to reapply because the criteria for eligibility differs for children and for adults. So that's really important. So for kids who are on SSI, on Medicaid as children, they still need to reapply as adults, and this is where the Social Security, the Aging and Disability Resource Center can assist. Now, some of our kids are enrolled in the Children's Long-Term Support Program, the CLTS waiver program. If you have a support and service coordinator through the county, through that program, likely that support and service coordinator will help with this sort of reevaluation and setting you and connecting you with the Aging and Disability Resource Center and setting you up to see if your person is then going to be eligible for long-term support services as an adult. So as a child, you might be familiar with the tool called the functional screen. Well, that screen is done again, but based on adult criteria. And that is to see if somebody is in fact eligible for long-term support programs like family care or IRIS. Those are the names of the long-term support programs for people 18 and over. I'll pause and see if there's any questions with what I was just talking about. You can just, I can't see people, so you can just unmute yourself or put your question in the chat box. Okay, let's move on. So legal changes happen at the age of 18, as I mentioned earlier. So when someone becomes a legal adult at age 18, they can vote, they can get married, they can have contracts, including credit cards, they can buy things like cars and boats, they can decide to leave school, they can join the selective service, join the military. These are all things that can happen when somebody turns 18. Many times our kids with disabilities might need assistance with making decisions. I mean, these are bigger decisions, as I said earlier, than the color of your shirt or what kind of fruit someone might want to eat. And so sometimes our kids will need assistance in making these decisions. And assistance with making decisions is sometimes called supported decision making. And there's a number of tools that sort of run a spectrum of least restrictive tools to more restrictive tools. And these tools are in place so that people can assist an individual with a disability when and it's a way to sort of get around different kinds of privacy laws. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of these tools. Tim, everything okay on your end? I heard the recording stopped and in progress, so I'm assuming everything is okay. So let's talk about these tools for supported decision making. When we think about this continuum, at the least restricted end of the continuum is something called a release of information. And so if you were in a healthcare setting, when you're prior to your person, well, right around when your person turns 18, they will need to, at the very least, if they have no other, if they use no other tools for supported decision making, it's important for them to complete a release of information. And that is something that's provided by the doctor's office. It's something that they'll also have to sign in the education world. And this is so you can continue to participate on their IEP team and information can be shared. And then also so that information can be shared with you about like health information, appointments, helping them with prescriptions, things like that. If that release of information at the very least is not signed, then the pharmacy will not be able to talk with you and allow you to help refill prescriptions. You will not be allowed to participate on the IEP team because that all of a sudden at age 18, that information is considered confidential for your now adult child. And so they have to give consent for that information to be shared with you. In long-term support programs, they have to consent for, they have to sign a form to say, yes, you can be included in that information sharing. At the bank, that information, there are these privacy laws, and unless at the very least a release of information is not signed, then this can't be, then information can't be shared with you, the parent. Going along this continuum, we get to powers of attorney. And powers of attorney are tools that can be used to essentially assign the right to make a decision to somebody else. So, for example, if you have a power of attorney for finances, your person can sign that power of attorney to give you, the parent or somebody else, the authority to make financial decisions on their behalf. Similarly, in healthcare, powers of attorney can be in place and activated if somebody is incapacitated. So you would use a power of attorney. Someone might sign a power of attorney before they go into surgery, so that if while they are under anesthesia, you can make decisions on their behalf. Powers of attorney for healthcare can be short-term or can be longer term, but they do have to be activated, and a physician needs to activate that. There is a tool called a representative payee trustee. If your person gets money from the Social Security Administration and doesn't feel comfortable taking care of those finances, they can, the Social Security or doesn't have the skills to manage their finances, the Social Security Administration might ask for a representative payee trustee to be named so that checks can be sent to that person, checks can be deposited, and expenses can be paid using money from the Social Security Administration to pay things such as rent, or to buy groceries, or to purchase clothing. So that's the role of a representative payee trustee. There are new to Wisconsin, probably in the past 3 years or so, are supported decision-making agreements. And these are tools that are legal tools within the state of Wisconsin that allows somebody to support the person with the disability in making decisions. So, and these can be used, supported decision-making agreements can be used with these other tools that I mentioned already. On the resource sheet, there is a lot of information about where you can find more information about supported decision-making agreements and how they're used. More and more people are using these agreements as an alternative to guardianship, because the tools allow the individual with disabilities to maintain their civil right to make their own decisions on their own behalf. You know, do you remember earlier we were talking a little bit about choice making and decision making? It's really important for individuals to have had experience in choice making and decision making for these supported decision making agreements to work for the individual. So that's why people are encouraged early to make decisions to the best of their ability often, so that they get in the habit of making these choices and decisions along with support. Then these supported decision-making agreements can be really authentically help the individual make decisions and can be a very powerful alternative to guardianship. So that would be something that I think that people should look into and consider before they get to deciding whether or not someone needs a guardian. But having explored all of these less invasive options, people might still, a determination might be made that somebody still needs a guardian, right? And so let's talk now a little bit about guardianship. What happens if somebody, if these tools are explored, but they're, it's not just, it's decided that, the person really needs more support than just support with their decision making, and in fact does need someone to make decisions on their behalf. That's when you would get into guardianship. Guardianship is court appointed, and most importantly, takes away an individual's rights to make their own decisions. Having said that, guardianship does also have some not flexibility, but it has some options within the whole sphere of guardianship. It can be temporary or it can be permanent. It can be full or it can be partial. You can have guardianship that is of the person, which means that pretty much all decisions are made on their behalf by somebody else who the court appoints to be their guardian. You can also have guardian of the estate, where a guardian's responsible for managing the ward's property and finances. Within guardianship of the person or guardianship of the estate, there is still some decisions that are made and rights that the individual can retain. So for example, most often an individual might retain the right to vote or the right to get certain licenses without having the guardian's permission. So oftentimes when somebody seeks guardianship, they would enlist an attorney to assist them with this. So these are different. So it's important to know about these different tools and to really think, because guardianship is court appointed, you'd have to go to the court to then say, can guardianship be removed? And when you go to the court to have guardianship appointed at the beginning, you're essentially giving documentation to the judge saying this person is incompetent to make their own decisions. So it's very hard if their disability status has not changed to go back to the court and say, well, nothing's really changed, but now the person is competent to make their own decisions. That's a really hard argument. And so when guardianship decisions are made, it's very important for people to know that that's very, not impossible, but very hard to overturn.
So Barbara, we have a question.
Yes.
Hang on one second.
I see the chat box. So Tracy, you're asking, is supported decision-making part of the transition plan in school, or is this part of what the ADRC does to help an individual and family explore these options? Well, and my answer is it depends. When my son was in high school, he had an excellent IEP team, but the IEP team never talked with my husband and I about options. They just kept saying, when are you going to get guardianship? and supported decision-making agreements were not around 12 years ago when we sought guardianship for Ben. But none of the other options were explained. This was also before the Aging and Disability Resource Center was around. So I say it depends because sometimes the IEP teams may bring it up. It is not put into the official plans for IEPs. Your child's primary care physician might bring it up. Your child's, if they're in long-term support and the long-term support waiver program, the support and service coordinator might bring it up, but truthfully, not everybody is knowledgeable about what the alternatives are to guardianship. And so if it's brought up, it's typically brought up in terms of when are you going to seek guardianship? And I've, from my experience in working with families, there are many parents who do are regretful that they did not explore less restrictive options prior to seeking guardianship for their child. And so as part of participating in this, I would ask you to spend that time thinking about investigating and talking with the professionals who support your child in thinking about what those less restrictive options are and to see if any of them are appropriate for your child. Other questions before we go on? We're going to breeze through the rest of this, but I know that this is a section that is super important to a lot of people. Any other questions though? Okay, let's continue. There are different kinds of, oh, Tim, let's see, what did you just pop into the chat box? Excellent. So it is now then a statutory requirement since 2017 that IEP teams are required to inform students in special education around supported decision-making. Again, though, I will still say that even though this is a statute, there are people that are more informed about this and less informed about this. So, in healthcare is something that folks at the ADRC can help you with, that Tim and his team can help you with at the Southern Regional Center, both accessing healthcare and thinking about it. Your child's healthcare situation, your child's condition will really inform you as how much attention you pay to this transition piece beyond insurance. Will you be needing to look for other kinds of providers? Will the specialists that your children are seeing as children, how long will they continue seeing your child? These are questions you need to ask your providers. Tim and the folks that he works with has some excellent information around healthcare transition. There's a website Tim, do you want to pop in the Health Transition Hub website also in the chat box? That's a great, Tim's going to be putting that information in there, where there's some great information about healthcare transition specifically. If we look at public insurance, we see Medicaid, we're seeing Medicare for the first time. Medicaid, again, like we talked earlier, people need to reapply for Medicaid as an adult. Badger Care, SSI, long-term supports are different entry points into Medicaid. One of the things that you might want to think about for your person is portable medical information. If they're spending more and more time out in the community, and if there are health situations that might arise and they can't communicate, what kinds of information do they need to carry with them? Do they need to have a medical alert bracelet that says, if I have a seizure, please contact, and then either the doctor's name or the parent's name or some other information on there. But this is information as our kids get older and spend more and more time out of the home, out of school, in the community. It's important for easily accessible information for people to access that in case of a health crisis or a health emergency. So this is something that you might want to talk with your child's doctor about, but it's something to think about, again, depending on the needs of your child. And remember about those opportunities and experiences to increase the independence of youth, filling their own prescriptions, making their own appointments, doing role playing with the doctor in the office. If your person is interested in becoming more conversant about talking about their health condition, what language might they use? What might they say to other people? How might they communicate more independently to a doctor? They'll start seeing doctors on their own, starting typically also at about age 14. And so how will they talk with their doctor? How can you help them build these skills so that they can carry forward information into their adulthood? Any questions about healthcare? Tim has put tons of links into the chat box. Thanks, Tim, for doing that. These are amazing sites and places to go to get more information about healthcare. But anyone have any burning questions now? Okay, well, let's talk about education. So in IEP team meetings, we talked about how transition planning begins at age 14. There are tools that will be introduced: the post-secondary transition plan, the college and career readiness plan. These are new additions to your child's IEP, where you start identifying goals that for your child to be working on so that they can start getting themselves ready for their lives after high school. Thinking about class selection with the IEP team. Again, will they be going for a high school diploma? Or will they be getting a certificate of completion if your school district offers that? That could inform the path that your child will take can inform what courses your child might take, what their high school experience might be like. And so that's a very important conversation to have with the IEP team, and decisions to be made along with your now teenager, talking about where they're going and what that path is that they'll be following. Participating in graduation, absolutely. That's an important milestone. Kids who have IEPs want to participate in graduation and can participate in graduation, even if they stay in the 18 to 21-year-old program. They just won't get their certificate of completion or their high school diploma until all of their IEP goals have been met, and they've left at that point of completion the 18 to 21-year-old program, if they choose to stay. Some kids choose to leave right after their senior year. They say, I don't want to have any more high school. I am done. And but I would encourage you strongly to work with your IEP team to think along with your child, what can be offered after 12th grade. There's so much richness in those 18 to 21-year-old programs or the transition programs. They go by different names in different schools, getting ready for secondary education, post-secondary education. Maybe they want to take a class at a tech school, and they could still have transportation. The school won't pay for the class, but will provide transportation, could provide assistance with either in class or with some of the work, job development opportunities, volunteer opportunities, life skills training, activities of daily living, how to get around the community, how to use public transportation, how to use Lyft and Uber. These are all things that can be available to your child as they're thinking about going to what they'll be doing with the support of the special education team after their senior year of high school. If your person decides that they do want to go to post-secondary, it's important to know that IDEA does not apply to colleges, universities, or tech schools. The law that is part of this is the Americans with Disabilities Act. So while there would be supports available for children, or young adults at this point, they're different than the IEP team. The IEP team wraps around the child. Supports and services are brought to the child. In post-secondary education, the young adult needs to seek these out. They need to provide documentation of their disability. They need to have a disability determination made. They need to work with a counselor in the Office of Disability Services. So then they need to seek out those supports. If they're going to have a note taker, for example, they need to find the note taker. So this is a mind switch and a paradigm shift for the student, because the student is used to, as I said, supports and services coming to them. In post-secondary education, they need to be proactive. So kids might need practice in being proactive, in seeking and advocating for themselves, in seeking out these supports and services. Any questions? Again, Tim has put some great resources in the chat box. I encourage you to copy and paste all of these resources. Tim, will you be sending these out to folks after this
Yes.
session tonight?
I will be compiling a list and sending it to all attendees.
Excellent, thank you. So then this would complement the information that's available on the Family Voices website. So you'll have tons of resources to go back to after this. But then let's talk about our last section, and that is living in the community, right? When we think about what makes our lives most meaningful, we might talk about friends, we might talk about family, we might talk about what we do for work, we might talk about where we go on vacation, we might talk about our hobbies, we might talk about a whole combination of those things. So will our kids with disabilities. And so when we help them think about what is a meaningful day for you, they might not be able to answer that. We might struggle to answer that for ourselves. But when we think about those things that make us lives meaningful, those pieces, we ask ourselves some big questions, right? What do we want our lives to look like? How do we want to spend our day? Where and with whom do we want to be and to live with? And importantly, what do we want to do for fun? So too for our kids with disabilities. And so this is where, when we think about community living and long-term supports, we think about how all of this can happen. For kids who are involved in, who will be involved in IRIS or family care, IRIS and family care can contribute funds to pay for a lot of these things. So if somebody is looking to work, family care and IRIS will pay for somebody to work in the community with for a job coach, for a job developer, to help find them a job, or to set up some self-employment. When we think about what makes a meaningful day, we often think about work, but there are sometimes there are people who, for one reason or another, can't work or choose not to work. And family care and IRIS will also then, in that situation, once work has been tried, will pay for things like day services, a place for somebody to go during the day to stay safe and healthy, which will also then serve to connect them to the community. Tim has put some of the one of the resources that Tim has put in here is Society's Assets, which is the Independent Living Center for Rock County. That is another great resource for adults and teens and adults with disabilities about what kinds of supports are available and what kind of information is available. The Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR, is a resource that often will start working with a student when they're in high school. They can start as early as a student being 16. Typically, they come into a student's life in their last year or two of high school. And the DVR is a great resource. It pays for things like job developers, job coaches. It pays for different assessments for people to have a truly meaningful, to really identify where somebody's skills and learning gaps are. It will help. There are assessments that help identify a student's interests, and that can be incredibly valuable for people who say, I have no idea what I want to do when I leave high school. People are often, there's a big myth out there with work and people with disabilities that people will lose their benefits. That's not true. Always, people will make more money if they work and get benefits than just benefits alone. And this happens through different work incentives through Social Security. The DVR will pay for different kinds of reports that are generated by work incentives benefit specialists. These people will help these the work incentives benefit specialists in particular will help people look at that intersection of work and public benefits and actually come up with a report that shows how exactly what happens with when you work, what happens that even if your benefits might go down, your net earnings go up, and that that work and benefits together can be a very powerful tool. So these work incentives benefit specialists and work incentives programs through the Social Security are incredibly powerful together. At some point, your person might choose to move out of your house, and these are some questions that they might want to consider as they're thinking about moving out. Where do they want to live? Do they want to stay close to you? Do they want to move far away? Do they want to own a house? Do they want to rent a house? Do they want to rent an apartment? Do they want to live with roommates? Thinking about living in the community is something that can be put off into past a child turning 18, past some of this other work that happens. Typically, students are okay with putting this off, but there are some situations and sometimes that people are like, nope, I'm moving out as soon as I turn 18. Well, then that's something also that the ADRC can help the young person think about and talk about different kinds of housing options and incentive programs also for owning a house or affordable housing options in a particular community. Additionally, the independent living centers can help with that as well. And then finally, you know, what community participation, what somebody wants to do for fun. We can't forget about fun. And that, you know, do they want to do, what kinds of hobbies do they want to continue or start up? Do they like to go to music? Well, if they want to go and listen to concerts, are there people that can take them? Can they afford to buy the tickets? These are different things to think about in community participation. And again, this is something that to think about and to talk through, particularly the IEP team, particularly during that 18 to 21-year-old time. So as I said at the beginning, we were going to talk about a ton of information, and we did. Tim, can I ask you to please drop the feedback form into the chat box, please?
I will certainly try.
Okay, thanks. Here I can, if you don't hear, nope, that's not it. Sorry. Forget what I just did. Yeah, so I think I sent that to you earlier. So if you could do that, that would be great. I am going to stop sharing. And I know we're at time, so I know some people need to pop off. But I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you have. I would invite you all also to please fill out this feedback form that Tim will be dropping in the chat box and then also sending out to you with these other links. It will take you probably about 45 seconds. And it's a way for us to make sure that we're meeting your needs. So, Tim, I don't know if you want to keep the recording going during the question and answer time or turn it off, but whatever your pleasure is fine with me. And if you have any questions, please ask them. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box.
Yeah, I think I have the the link in there. And before we go,
Excellent.
I do want to thank everybody and invite you all back next week when we'll be talking with, oh, let's see who's going to be here for us. Oh, Deb Rebel and Kelsey Harrington from DVR.
Excellent.
To talk to us about how vocational agencies support students in preparing to work, finding work, and supporting them at work. You can register, or maybe you already did, or you could just hop back on this Zoom and we will be here.
So I see that says that it can't be, let's see. Here, let's see if this,
Yeah, I am having some extreme difficulty with my computers. I switched over to a third computer and I don't have all my links.
got it. All right, let's see if this works. Hang on. I'm going to put this in here. Okay, why don't you guys try this link and see if this one works? I know it's similar. Oh, it was missing an S on survey.
It works.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, so if
Thanks,
you guys
Barbara.
fill that out, that would be awesome. But any questions?
That's a lot of information, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat or go ahead and unmute. I am not seeing anything in the chat. I am not seeing any unmuting, on my little tiny laptop.
The question was, will you get the links in the chat? Yep, Tim said he was going to compile these and send them out to all the
Yes.
participants. Yes.
And the video will also be linked to the website that we use to register.
I want to thank you all for coming and remind you that it doesn't all have to happen at the same time. Think about one thing that you want to learn more about, that you want to dive into, and go for that one thing. And just know that it's overwhelming, but there's lots of folks who can help you.
All right, I just echo that. So between Family Voices, Southern Regional Center, and the awesome team you have at the School District of Janesville, please feel free to ask any questions of us after this presentation. Thank you all so for being here. And I'm gonna try to figure out how to find the recording again and stop all this stuff.
All right, I see on my screen that I can stop the recording.